All right, we have our recorder going for the radio portion. We have our Facebook Live going for our Facebook portion, and we are just becoming so multitasking of a people. And it's 11:12 WKRK in Murphy, North Carolina. Tim Radford here with you, along with Sheriff Derek Palmer of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. And good morning, Sheriff. We appreciate your being with us this morning.
Good morning. I apologize for being a little bit late this morning.
I was getting worried about you.
Yeah, we had several issues that popped up this morning through some investigations and different things had to deal with. So
I know you have a pretty busy job.
Yeah, generally I can kind of get away on Fridays pretty well, but today was just one of those Fridays that I think because we're off Monday on a holiday, I think everybody's trying to get everything in on Friday. Maybe what it is.
That's right. That's right. It is a holiday Monday, isn't it?
It is.
That's right.
It certainly is.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. We have probably a lot of things to talk about today. And before we get started, I want to, since we're doing this on Facebook, let me close out that. And I want to do a message here. A couple of weeks ago, we mentioned about a house fire right at Christmas time.
Right.
And it's one of our listeners, wonderful listeners, and her daughter lost their home to fire just before Christmas. And she is just a sweet lady. She and her daughter are both sweet, but right at Christmas time, they lost their home due to fire. And if anybody's going through a fire, they know how chaotic it is. Right after that fire, trying to get things like even medication, when medication's burned up, all their clothing burned up. And at first she did not want me to mention this at all on the radio, because she's like me. She's proud, and she doesn't want to seem like she's asking for help. But sometimes things happen, like with fires. We have to reach out and ask for help in those times. So our wonderful listener is Miss Lois White, and for folks who listen to our radio, she's the one who loves Wade Spencer, Heart That Will Never Break Again, and she also likes Mountain Joy's The Milky Way song, we call it, and it's When I Get Home. So if you are able to financially assist Miss Lois White and her daughter Holly Lundquist with their current needs as they recover from this fire, if you can please mail any of your financial contributions to Lois's sister. So here's the address. It's Lois White, in care of Laura Brown, 498 Beach Cove Road, Warren, North Carolina, 28909, and any contribution will be greatly appreciated. Let's see if I can get this on camera at all so folks can get the address. Oh, this is weird. I'm trying to get this on the...
There you go.
All right, so folks on Facebook, if you can see that address, that may help you there. All right, we were talking about fire safety a couple of weeks after this happened, and I know another one of our listeners, Brian Tomlin up in Andrews, and his family also lost their home too, and someone had called in on Party Line, and I don't know exactly how. Maybe somebody can call this afternoon on Party Line how they can contribute to that family as well. So there's been quite a few house fires recently. With these cold temperatures, these heaters are working overtime, and we just want to make sure people are safe and protected and and have working smoke detectors.
Yeah, that's very important. Also, like we talked about before, remember, if you bring in indoor heaters like kerosene heaters, propane heaters, those type of things, be sure and have those detection equipment with that, because it just takes just for a second for a fire to get out of control, for a system to malfunction or something like that. And even space heaters, when you got space heaters in your floor, sometimes faulty wiring or just something too close, getting too hot, could ignite, those kind of things. So
a lot of times people also buy those very cheap extension cords and run, and you probably should not run heaters on those little bitty flimsy extension cords.
Yeah, sometimes too with the fires too, that's what causes the cords overheat and they melt, and then when they melt, it ignites a fire on the cord itself, not necessarily a faulty equipment, but on the heater side, but maybe on the cord side. So, and also remember that the longer your cord is, the bigger gauge it needs to be, because when you stretch that, I don't know all the scientific reasons behind it, but I just know this, that when you stretch the cord farther and farther, it takes longer for that energy to get through, and it creates more heat. So that's the Cliff's Note version of that. Maybe we'll invite Mark back, Mark Thigpen, since he was fire chief. He can explain to us how all that works.
Today's science lesson has been brought to you by Sheriff Derek Palmer.
Yeah, I'm not much on teaching how that kind of stuff works, but maybe we can invite Mark one day and he can explain how all that works from the fire chief side.
We always love having Mark on the radio, and I think he enjoys being here too.
He does.
He has a lot of great information to pass along, and he's just so calm and collective, and
Yeah, it drives me crazy.
He doesn't get excited over anything, does he?
I'll be bouncing around the office sometimes upset about something and asking, what do you think about it? And he will just sit there and just stare at me for a few minutes before he responds. And I'm just waiting. And finally he'll respond with something, some words of wisdom, and
He's
try to get me calmed down. And,
well thought out.
right. So he very rarely speaks without thinking about it first. And that's an asset for me.
All right. The other night, Tuesday, we were at the Andrews board meeting, and you
Right.
spoke there to our the folks that were there present, and we had a ton of folks watching online, both live and after. I think it's about 2,000 people that have already watched that video
Right.
just from the meeting, and I was trying to think, what if we got 2,000 people in that one little room?
Oh, that would be a disaster, wouldn't it?
I'm glad to be able to have this shared on Facebook Live. I was telling Chief Jacobs today, with this kind of technology now allowing folks to watch it, if I were a kid watching these meetings, my life might have gone in a different path
It may
because
have.
I was never exposed to local government and how it's run. So
Right.
I'm hoping that the students out there watching this may be inspired by just wanting
You
to help
never
out their
know.
community.
And like when we do career days and things within the schools, we almost always see a spark in someone's eyes that said, I've never considered that before. That might be something I want to do in the future. So it's just good to get that information out and talk to the kids and stuff about our government and the way it works.
All right. Let's see. At that meeting, in case folks did not see the video or in case they did not attend in person, one of the things discussed was the status of the Andrews Police Department, and you gave your opinion
Right.
about what should happen. If
Right.
you don't mind resharing that with us here on the radio for our audience who may not have Facebook.
Well, I always believe and still am a firm believer that if you can keep the police department up there and keep it functional and keep it going, I think that's the ultimate goal and the route that we should go on that. Not that I mind stepping in and helping the folks of Andrews. We're already doing that now, and we're covering calls for them and doing coverage up there and doing patrols and business checks and all the things in Andrews that we do in the county. But the fact of the matter is, at this point in time, we don't have the manpower to do that on long term. So if that's going to be a long term situation, we're going to have to figure out, about compensation from the towns, about hiring people to do that job, and possibility of satellite office and who we're going to staff it with and those kind of things. So there's a lot of logistical things with that, and it's doable. We could do that. But I still think it's important for a town to keep its police department if it can. The illustration I used the other night, and I want to kind of share this with people on the radio, I used the illustration of several years ago, my grandmother had to go to the nursing home, and she was taken very, very good care of in the nursing home. They treated her very well. They gave her medications and bathed her and did all the things they're supposed to do in a nursing home. But as a family member, there was still that overwhelming feeling from not just myself but other family members that they're just not taking care of her like I would. They're just not doing the things that I would do. And so when you're thinking about the law enforcement situation that's going on in Andrews, it's kind of that same thought process from me, that we can step in and we can help you get the needs that you need and do the patrols and do all those things. But as far as just that taking care of you, just as that feeling of somebody watching out for me and taking care of me, I don't necessarily feel that we can do it better than you can do it yourself, and that because it's your family member. And so when you're there taking care of your family member and they're taking care of your community, you will take care of your community better than somebody else taking care of your community. And so I just feel like that's a pointed illustration to use for that.
There's a lot of things to consider because if you live within the city limits like Murphy or Andrews, you're paying city tax plus
Right.
county tax. So a lot of that city tax is to fund a police department. So,
It is.
So
You're
if-
actually paying for double coverage. You're paying for a dual law enforcement coverage. And one of the things is with taking that city tax money and giving it to the county for a patrol officer from the county, even though you still have deputies that respond to Andrews, you still have deputies that help the police departments and Murphy and Andrews cover calls. With paying that city tax, what you're actually paying for is you're paying for somebody to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you're getting kind of a double coverage. You're getting it from your police department and your sheriff's office. And so by taking those taxes and just giving it to the sheriff's office, even though we may can assign someone with those city limits, you still lose that feeling of having that double coverage, and you lose that feeling of having somebody there ultimately 24/7. But going back to the nursing home illustration, there are times, just like with my grandmother, that we didn't want to put her in a nursing home. We didn't want her to be there, but there was a medical necessity for her to be there. And so we had to do that for the nursing home to take care of her. Well, kind of the same thing in this law enforcement situation. When you use that for an illustration, you can use it that what's been going on with the town and what's been going on with the police department, they're kind of sick right now. And so we're stepping in and helping and doing what we need to do to help the town. And so there's times that you need that person to come in and help, and you need that person to step in. And so that's kind of what we want to do. We want to step in and we want to help, and we want to make sure everything functions right in Andrews. We want to make sure the citizens are taken care of. But ultimately, it'd be great if that person could go home for the nursing home and get back with their family, and so that's kind of what we're shooting for.
Right now, Andrews only has one officer on duty, correct?
That's
Sergeant
correct.
Ethan Henderson.
That's
so
correct.
You're doing the fill-in work on the rest of that. And the one thing that I've noticed on Facebook conversations is that there's always been like this rivalry between Andrews and Murphy, and I don't know if it's because of high
Right.
school football or what, or allocation of funds from government. It could be a mixture of both. But the biggest thing that I've noticed from Facebook comments is that if something happened in Andrews, people have the feeling that an officer would have to come all the way from Murphy to
Right.
Andrews, and that's not always the case.
No, that's
and,
not true.
And
Yeah.
one of the options that y'all have talked about, you mentioned earlier,
Right.
possibly having the satellite office in Andrews.
Right.
How would that work, and how would that help, calm people down?
Well, let me
as
back
far
up for just a second. I say that's not true, but there's always that possibility,
Mm-hmm.
that someone would have to come from a distance away. That's typically not true. That's typically not true on a day-to-day basis, but there always is that possibility. But what the folks at Andrews need to realize also is when you're looking at 24-hour day, 7-day a week coverage, they're not getting that now, and they're not getting that, haven't been getting that for a while.
Right.
And I'll explain to you why. Is because if you have one officer working in Andrews or a couple officers working in Andrews and they make an arrest, they have to drive that person to Murphy to the jail. So they're absent from the town at that point. And so if they're in Murphy doing an arrest process at our jail and the call comes into Andrews, then a sheriff's deputy has to respond from somewhere else. So that's that happens all the time. It's happened throughout history. It's just that people don't think about that. They don't think about that it happens from time to time. So going back about the sheriff's office responding, typically that would not happen on a day-to-day basis of responding away from somewhere else. We have the county broke down into zones, and that area of Andrews coverage is Zone 1. That's the Andrews area up toward Topton, and so we typically always have an officer in that area 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But just like an Andrews police officer arrests somebody, take them to jail, sometimes that officer has to arrest somebody, take them to jail. Right. Or sometimes that officer gets called away to respond to Peachtree or to Murphy or on a backup call or something like that. So there are times there's not an officer there. But we ultimately try to keep one there all the time. In the event that we need to step in and do more aggressive patrols in Andrews, and that we look at doing satellite offices and things of that nature, one of the things we have discussed at the sheriff's office would be that if it comes to that point, would be taking that police department office and maybe taking a detective or two and assigning them to work up there during the week out of that office, maybe doing a satellite offices where our patrol officers go in there to write reports and to spend time there. So hopefully that at least during the week while businesses are going on and things of that nature, that there would be someone in that office or around that office that people could drop in and speak to if they needed to.
And that's one thing that I've been pondering through my mind. If that town of Andrews police office is still there,
Right.
does it matter if the uniform on the person is a town of Andrews or a Cherokee County sheriff? If
Right.
someone is in that office fulfilling that role, does it matter?
Well, ultimately the answer is no. But going back to what I said before about taking care of yourself versus
Right.
someone else coming in there, a lot of times it's a pride thing,
Right.
and not only just a pride thing, but it's the fact of that we have people who are here all the time. Where you may have a sheriff's deputy that works in Andrews, but then he may spend the next 2 weeks in Hiawassee Dam and the next 2 weeks after that in Peachtree or whatever. people rotating in and out.
Right.
When you have a police department, you have people who are there all the time. It's the same people, the same faces they see all the time.
Right. They're dedicated to that.
Right, that's dedicated
town.
to that place. And so when you have a police department, then that's the great opportunity when we talk about taking care of yourself is for those officers who work there every day and is assigned to that area of getting in and meeting with business owners, meeting with the public there in Andrews, families, people that live in those towns. And so you build that more personal relationship with those people. Whereas with the sheriff's office, to go back to answer your question, does it matter who's in that chair? No, it really doesn't matter. But you may not have those personal relationships. You may not have those personal one-on-one things that you would have if you had a police department.
From an advantage standpoint, are there resources that the sheriff's office could offer, like, say, investigators, detectives, and other job situations that a small police department could not offer?
Yeah, anytime you go up in agency size, whether you're going from town to county to state to federal, whenever you go up in size, you go up in resources, and you go up in abilities to do things. For example, like right now, with the sheriff's office, we got people such as Roger Williams that's there that does internet crimes and forensic analysis and those kind of things. And so those resources open up a little bit more than we didn't have before. Before with the police department, the same thing with Murphy. Roger works very well Murphy Police Department. He works very well with the Andrews Police Department. But it's on a request basis, so if their investigator or their office don't request our help, then we don't get involved with their cases. Whereas if the sheriff's office jurisdiction, it would be an automatic just jumping in there because we have those resources. So we would be working on those things. And not just with Roger, but with other investigative tools, narcotics, all those kind of things that goes on in the county. You have a little bit more leeway of just jumping in there and doing what you need to do in those city limits. Whereas now we kind of rely on them requesting us to come in and do things in the city limits.
Another thing that is a big topic on Facebook and other social media sites is that the smaller departments like Andrews are a breeding ground for training officers, and then they get lost to other larger agencies with bigger pay. And that's something that your office is concerned about too.
We are very concerned about that.
So what kind of costs are associated when, for example, Andrews Police Department trains an officer and they stay a year and then they go somewhere else? How much money is lost from that?
Going back, let me address something before we get to that question and remind me to answer that. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, and if you read the newspaper this week, there was an article that Matthew Osborne had wrote this week about the pay in Cherokee County and detention officers trying to get raises and those kind of things. What a lot of people don't realize is sheriff's deputies are actually paid less than Murphy police officers and Andrews police officers. Both of those are paid more than sheriff's deputies. Sheriff's deputies have a bigger responsibility. We have a bigger county. We do more things. We do civil process, the jails, sex offender registries. We do all those additional work. But our pay is actually less than Andrews and Murphy both. And so we're constantly trying to get that pay up and trying to get it where it needs to be. So we are as vulnerable, if not more vulnerable, of losing people to other agencies than Andrews is or Murphy, either one. So with that being said, there's a cost that goes into training people. There's a cost that goes into there's 720 hours of basic law enforcement training that has to be done. I think there's 24 hours of in-service that has to be done every year to keep those certifications going. So there's a lot of training that goes into that. Then any additional certifications that you do, just like we talked about Roger and internet stuff, or special investigative tools, evidence collections, all those different things that officers go through, supervisor school and FTO schools and all those kind of things, all those require extra time and extra training. The problem is that historically out here on this end of the state, I kind of say it tongue in cheek, but it's true. When you talk about monies that's funneled down from the state, they start in Raleigh and they kind of trickle out of Raleigh across the state. Well, we're the farthest end. we're way out here away from Raleigh. So I know our funds at the sheriff's office comes from tax dollars and comes from the commission board appropriating those monies and those type of things. But the bottom line is, even though we need more pay and we need those things, the commissioners don't have a never-ending pot of money to pull from. They have to take the whole county into consideration of what's happening within the county. as we're well aware of, we got school issues, that the schools need monies and need operational cost and things and maintenance to buildings and all those things keep the education going. So they've got to take that in consideration and all kind of things that are happening. But we are, with all those trainings that go into these people, what's happened in Cherokee County, not just Andrews Police Department, but the Sheriff's Office. Murphy has kind of got them in a good, stable place. We're in a pretty good, stable place right now. But it's got to the point to where we invest in people, we train people, we send them to schools, we get them 2 or 3 years of education and training, and then once we spend about 3 years into people and they get their feet under them and they become good officers and we're really developing good officers, then you have people such as tribal police or other sheriff's offices around the state or other police departments around the state go recruiting. And they say, okay, if you come to work with us, you're making $14.50 at the sheriff's office. We'll give you $16, $17 an hour to come work with us. And so for older people that's kind of survived, that's toward the end of their career, it's not as much about the money. It's more about where you live and your family and your ties and all those kind of things. But for younger folks who are early to mid-20s, who are creating families and have children and buying homes and cars and those kind of things, they typically go where the money is, and I don't blame them. They've got to have resources to pay for their homes and their families and all those kind of things. So that's a never-ending battle that we've had and will continue to have for a while, I'm afraid.
And I think that you mentioned that some of the neighboring counties offer a little bit better pay and without as much work traffic to do, fewer calls to respond to.
Clay County is a good example. Clay County is one of our best examples for out here because their pay is pretty much equivalent to what we make. They actually make a few cents more than we make in Cherokee County as far as their deputies and detention. But the fact of the matter is, you can go to Clay County where they answer. I think Sheriff Davis told me they're answering about 20,000 calls a year or something like that, 18,000 or something. And I just did my numbers for this year, and we're doing almost 40,000 calls in Cherokee County, twice the number of calls. They have a 46-bed facility jail there in Clay County. We house 150 people in Cherokee County. Gun permits and sex offender registries and all those other things that go along with that, civil process, court, all those things are twice as much, and some things are 3 times as much as Clay County's doing. And I've had officers that we've hired from Clay County and officers that we've lost to Clay County tell us that in Cherokee County, it's busy. You're running call to call to call, and at the end of the shift, you may have anywhere from 10 to 15 reports to write and those kind of things to get caught up. And in Clay County, you may have 3 or 4 calls a week, or 3 or 4 calls a shift, And so a lot of people will go to places like Clay County because the pay may not be that much greater, but the stress is a whole lot less. And so we have people that leave for stress reasons, just the fast pace of things that we do here. And one of the things I try to get the commission board to understand and our county manager and other folks to understand, and I think they understand it very well, but is the fact of that people may not leave because of pay. They may leave because of stress. But if we had our pay where it needed to be, sometimes people may deal with that stress a little bit better or deal with it a little bit longer, because some of that stress is not just the calls, but some of that stress is the bank calling and bills that need to be paid and kids need braces and all those kind of things. So they may go to these other places where the call volume's less and may get a secondary job or something of that nature.
Being a business owner, I understand the need to retain employees, because it's not fun hiring a new employee. You have to go through so much process, and when you have wonderful people that work for you already, you want to keep those people. Although we don't pay the best, we don't pay outrageous rates here at the radio station, but Emma has been here for 43 years, and I can't imagine doing it without her. Donna Lynn, I forget how many years she's been here, and Bill Yance was just shy of 50 years. So retaining employees to me is very important.
And a lot of people don't realize the money invested in employees. When you've got somebody that has, like for the sheriff's office example, and I don't know what the exact numbers are, that's something the finance office could answer, but I know that when you've got an employee that, say, makes $40,000 a year, the county may have close to $100,000 invested in that employee, because of insurance, because of workman's comp, because of all the other things that come along with that the county invests in. So when you talk about, well, it's just another $40,000 to hire somebody, you got to take in consideration that's a salary plus all those benefits that go with that may up it to close to $100,000. Plus, if we hire another deputy, there's another car you have to purchase, another gun, another leather gear, all those kind of things that go with it. So there's a lot of investment put into that person. And like you say, when another agency just comes along and offers them several more dollars an hour to leave, it's a real shot sometimes to lose people.
I got a couple of quick comments
Okay.
there that disappeared quickly. One was asking about something about a white Honda going around the area, and then somebody asked about if there's ever going to be an animal control officer.
Yeah. Animal control is a battle that we fought for years. I'm a believer on animal control, and I know that we have differences of opinion on this. And even within the county government itself, there are differences of opinion on it. My thought process on animal control is either go in full board and do it the right way and hire the people and the vehicles and the equipment and develop protocols that you do animal control the right way, or don't do it at all. Because I think when you just try to half-heartedly do stuff and haphazardly try to do it, then that's where you set yourself up to getting in trouble. It's where you set yourself up for things not going correctly, for the animals not being treated correctly, for homeowners that own animals not being treated fairly, and those type of things. And you just set up just a bad environment for that. So my opinion is when it comes time to address animal control and do that, when the county government feels like it's the appropriate time to do that, then I think we should go full board into it and do it the right way. But again, go back to what I said a while ago, the commission board has a lot of criteria that they have to think about and a lot of things going on in the county that they invest money in. And they don't have that just unending pool of money.
Right.
They have to actually think about where they're going to invest their money this year and what they're going to fix this year and those kind of things. And things that public don't think about and things that I don't think about, a lot of times is from a commissioner standpoint is I may be asking for a pay raise or I may be asking for a piece of equipment for my office or whatever. They may have a piece of equipment at the landfill that needs to be replaced that costs $100,000, So that may just be one purchase that they're having to consider about what to do with that.
Right.
So they have a lot of needs within the county they have to evaluate. So I think that we're in a place that we probably need to be serious about animal control and looking at animal control and doing those. I know there's a lot of passionate thoughts about animal control on both sides, from we absolutely have to have it to absolutely don't want it, and somewhere in between on that. So I think it's just one of those discussions we're going to continue to have.
I don't think there's much in between there. I think it's either one side or the other. From
It
everything
seems like it.
everything I've read online, it's one side or the other. It's
Right.
not a lot of neutral ground there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see about the. Elizabeth Brooks says, "Can you talk about what's been going on with the white Honda in our area?" I'm not sure what she's talking about.
I'm
Do
not
you know?
either. I'm not either. I know we get reports from different vehicles from different times doing different things. Some things are founded, some things are unfounded. Some vehicles we find, some we don't. If she wants to call my office and elaborate on that a little bit, I'll be more than happy to do some research and talk to her about it. Or if I had a little bit more information, I might could address that. But it's not ringing a bell right offhand.
All right. I know I read somewhere, I don't know if it has to do with the white Honda or what, but
Right.
two ladies showed up, I think it was the Caney Creek area or something like that, saying that they were looking for Missy, and then they changed their story to they were
Right.
missionaries or something like that.
Well, this is what I want to tell people about stuff like that, and just understand this, is that whether it's a white Honda or not, we have people from time to time, whether they're local people, and we actually have it don't happen every year, but every year or two or every couple of years, we have gypsies that come through. And I know people are like, what, gypsies? But yes, we still have gypsies in America, and they still travel. And all it is they just travel all across the country, just stealing and scamming people. That's all they do. Remember years ago, we had like the paving thing where they would spray black tar on people's
Right.
driveway, elderly people, and take them for money. And by the time they realized it wasn't actually paved, they're gone with their money and those kind of things. And so we have people come through for different things. So what we have a lot of times, whether it's gypsies or whether it's local people, is sometimes we have people that's looking for houses to break into. They're looking for different things to do to be no good. And so they may pull up in your driveway expecting no one to be there and knocking on doors to see if anybody's going to answer or not. And when you do answer, they've got to come up with some reason why they knocked on your door. And so these people that do this, that knock on your door, that it just sounds strange and they're asking weird questions kind of thing, if possible, and I know I know you talked about Chief Jacobs talked about this morning, but if possible, try to get their tag numbers and try to report that. They may not have actually committed a crime, and we may not actually be able to arrest them, but that gives us an idea of who we need to be looking at in the case that we have breaking and enterings in the area, or in case we have scams and different things in the area. That gives us a tag number and people to be looking for to question. One thing I do want to say, I want to add to a little bit what Chief Jacobs said this morning on the program, is we don't, myself, Sheriff's Office, Police Department, Murphy PD, Andrews, nobody wants you to put yourself in danger to try to get information. So we don't want you out confronting people or running cars down or getting in altercations with people or anything like that. But as the vehicle's turning and leaving, if you can get a tag number, if you can see it, just jot that down, just write it down and report it to us so we know that there's something weird that happened there.
A lot of times a cheap camera, maybe like one of those deer cameras,
Right.
In your driveway that kind of monitors going in and out.
Right.
I know that those cameras are very, very important to a lot of people for security reasons. As you can see, we have tons of them here.
Right.
But that just keeps us, peace of mind. And if people see the cameras outside the building, they might think twice about doing anything they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, and like for my place, I've said it before, but my place, I've got several cameras on my house and my place, and you can actually record to the cloud where if people was to break in and steal your system, you still got it. And, but it helps a lot.